Good afternoon. I'm Teresa Michelson of the League of Women Voters, Champaign County. Welcome to this presentation on the Fair Tax Amendment, one that's more focused on the human services needs of the state as they relate to the state's revenue problem. Needs that will go unmet if the voters do not approve the Fair Tax Amendment on the November ballot. Our speaker today is Jim Dixon, a community organizer and labor activist and a member of the Responsible Budget Coalition. He also serves on the Vote Yes for Fair Tax Ballot Committee. He just told me, I think he can correct me, he's distributed 6,000 vote for the fair tax signs in the past couple of weeks. He's a founding member and past national president of Bereaved Parents of the United States of America. Today, he'll be talking about the Responsible Budget Coalition, the RBC. And so I'll just say that it's a diverse coalition of more than 200 organizations concerned about state budget and tax issues and how vital programs and services can receive their fair share of state revenue. We're going to start the program with a short video. Two directors of local social service agencies spoke about the work their agencies do and how they would be affected if funding for programs such as theirs would have to be cut. Then Jim will share his thoughts and perspectives with us. And there might be time at the end for questions. So be sure you're muted. I can't be muted because the sound of the video is coming through my computer. So I hope all will be quiet here on the Western Front. All right, so I'm going to start this. And here we go. Okay.
Hello, I'm Melissa Shanley, Clinical Supervisor at the Center for Youth and Family Solutions in Champaign. Here at the Center for Youth and Family Solutions, we serve people from all walks of life. The past few months have tested our resilience and left us questioning what the future holds. The Fair Tax Amendment would help move our organization forward to live out our values in an era where systemic inequity is in the spotlight. Our 5 program areas all focus on serving children and families who have experienced life-changing trauma, abuse, and neglect, or other significant life challenges. Our goal is not only to help each child and adult learn to cope with those life storms, but also to help them achieve their fullest potential. There is nothing better for our communities than having them filled with strong families who are fully able to contribute to making them a vibrant place to live and grow. The Center for Youth and Family Solutions supports a fair tax and urges all Illinois voters to support it. This fair tax system is the norm in most of the United States. It's how the federal tax system and the tax systems of more than 30 other states work. Our state needs to have sufficient funding to provide affordable housing for all who need it, ensure that everyone has quality health care, employees are paid a fair wage for the work they do, and provide the services to help residents be successful. If the Fair Tax Amendment fails, the state will have no choice but to again reduce funding for human services. Many of our programs and services at CYFS will face significant cuts if that occurs. Across the state, including Champaign, this will mean a reduction in services and an increase in caseloads for foster children, adoptive families, and youth and families in crisis, among other services.
Hello, my name is Grace Mitchell and I'm the director of the Family Advocacy Center in Champaign County. The Family Advocacy Center is a center that is paid for through the state, through DCFS. And what we are is a small non-for-profit, and we work with clients that are involved with child welfare programs and especially DCFS in helping them to navigate the system and get through the system, provide them with support, advocacy. We do a number of groups here in classes, family classes, parenting, advocacy, anger management, domestic violence, and we also do third-party and supervised visits with usually the non-custodial parent. We're a staff of 4. We have 2 full-time staff members and 2 part-time staff members. And we are fortunate enough to have interns from the school of social work doing internships at this agency also. One of the dilemmas, well, I forgot to add, we serve actually between 50 and 80 clients. Most of those clients are involved with child welfare agencies. We also provide services to the community. Those services are different, and we can provide no more than 50% of our clients that are coming from the community. And of course, that's because DCFS is the ones that are paying us. So the other 50% has to be clients that are involved with agencies. One of the major concerns that I have in reference to our budget is that we haven't had any specific cuts to staff in several years. But what would happen if those cuts would occur after this tax piece goes into place? It would devastate our services, and more than likely we would be closed. We get a set amount from the state for the services that we provide here, and any impact on the funding that we get would definitely cause us to have to close our agency. A few years ago, we received additional funding from the United Way. We did not get that funding for the last 2 years. So that truly was something that impacted our services a lot. For us to be cut in any funding, and this is the reason we only have the 2 full-time and 2 part-time staff people, the doors would close. I see our services vital to the community, although there are a number of social services available to families with children. But as a small agency, I see us as being very unique, because many times we serve those clients that fall between the cracks and don't receive services. So in that respect, I do worry about what would happen, if our funding was cut even a little bit. With the biggest thing we deal with now with the state is through the controller's office, we have a difficult time getting our money on time. And as you know, the state has a difficult time paying their bills, especially on time. So we've been fortunate enough for the Community Foundation to be willing to work with us when we don't get our funding on time. And that alone is a big problem, because when we don't get our monies like we're supposed to, of course, that affects payroll and it affects us paying our bills.
Okay. So you heard from Melissa and Grace Mitchell. Are we back to a full screen here? Is this okay? Okay, all right. So I am now gonna I can now mute myself and turn this over to Jim, who's going to share a number of things with us, but all having to do with the fair taxes, you see. All right, Jim.
So, okay, so, they just did a really good job of saying a lot of what I was going to say. And I'm glad that, you have local people saying that. I think we've all heard some really good stuff from Ralph, and we've all become super educated about fair tax. But I'm going to run through our slide deck here with you, and I'm going to skip a lot of stuff here in the slide deck as I go through. But we're at the point now where we need to be able to talk and have a conversation with our neighbors about why this is so important. So I've been working on this for so many years that I can't remember. Gene Pierce, your state president, talks about the league working on it for 50 years. And I took a couple of years out during that time, but I've been working on it for a long time. We spent a lot of time last year over at the Capitol working to get it on the ballot. And we were very successful after a lot of hard work getting it on the ballot, so that this is the first time in years that the people of Illinois really get to decide how they're being taxed. So it's a real opportunity for us as citizens to really participate in democracy. So I'm going to run through these slides. I'm going to make some comments as we go, because I think now what we need to be doing is thinking about how do we talk to our neighbors, how do we talk to our friends. And one of the things that we know is that when we talk about values, that's when we win. when we get into the weeds a lot, and Ralph's real good at explaining stuff, when we get into the weeds a lot, people kind of, their eyes kind of glaze over. And right now, with what's going on, we're only going to be able to have short conversations with our friends. So as we go through this, I want you to think about what would be your 30-second elevator speech if you were talking to a friend about fair tax. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to run through this. And like I say, skip some slides. Okay, so we're going to talk about wanting a fair tax for Illinois. And just so you know who we are, Vote Yes for Fair Tax is a diverse coalition of organizations. We directly work with and for communities and families across Illinois, and people that believe that fair tax is a common sense reform that we need to fix our finances, strengthen our community, and prevent cuts to the vital programs like we just saw. Okay, what's wrong with our current system? We know that pretty much. Not everything from the 70s is aged well. Illinois' Constitution makes everybody pay the same rate. That means that anybody makes 30,000 and anybody makes 3 million going to pay the same rate, and that's unfair. Here's something I think is really important, and when I've talked to people, this is something that has helped them wrap their arms around fairness. So if we look at all the taxes that we pay, real estate taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, all the taxes we pay, if you're making about $21,000 a year, at the end of the day, out of that $21,000, 14.4% is being paid in taxes. If you're in the middle income, you're making between 41 and 63, 12.6% of your income is being paid in taxes. But if you're over at the far right, the top 1%, and there's only about, I think I saw something just a few minutes ago, yeah, there's only about 189,000 taxpayers in that far right-hand side that are going to be paying only 7.4%. So when you explain this to people and talk about fairness, people start to understand. One of the ways I look at it, and I say, you know, if I had a $100 bill and it was tax day and I was in the lowest 20%, you'd want $14.40. If I'm in the top, you'd want $7.40, and that's not fair. So fairness really resonates with people. Okay, we know we've got a regressive system. We know that the bottom 20% of earners pay a higher percentage of their income taxes than anybody in any Midwest state, okay? So it really impacts people of lower income. This is what we're talking about, folks. Public services have suffered too much. Under the previous administration, we saw mental health treatment facilities and domestic violence shelters close. Healthcare providers struggled to serve patients. 40,000 low-income children could not receive the child care that they needed. And these are children of mothers who we want to go back to work, so we're going to help them with child care. We're going to help lift them up and move them towards the middle class. And especially in Champaign, the last one really resonates to me. 7,500 higher education jobs were lost. Another thing that really matters to me, and I think to a lot of seniors, is that the chief responsibility of our state system is to fund public education. But Illinois, traditionally, we've only put from the state about 24.8% of the money in from the state. The national average for the state share of education funding is almost 47%. So what that means is that when we don't adequately fund, it forces local governments to shoulder more of the burden. It means that property taxes are going up for middle class families and low income families. So one of the good things about the fair tax is that, you know, we'll be able to take some of the pressure off of the real estate taxes in Illinois. Okay, what's it mean? Higher rates for higher incomes. You guys have been through this a bunch of times. Lower rates for lower and middle income. It requires wealthy people to pay their fair share. It only increases taxes on those that are making more than $250,000 a year. And that's net income, folks. That's not gross income. That's after you start taking your deductions off, when you get down, that's when you look at the number. We know that most states do it, we know the feds do it, and we know that it's in our Constitution. So what's it do? 97% of taxpayers get a tax cut or pay no more. We'll have more money for schools and healthcare, and it eases the burden on working families. So those are three very important points that we can talk about. It's basically a tax cut for everybody making $250,000 a year or less, right? 97% of those in Illinois will get a tax cut or pay no more than they do now. And I don't know, have you all looked at the rates? Are you familiar with the rates? Shake your hands or shake your head if you are, if you're not, whatever. So let's run through this, how this works, just so you understand. On your first $10,000, you'll pay 4.75%. On the amount of income between $10,000 and $100,000, that $90,000, you'll pay 4.9. On the amount between 101 and 250, you'll pay 4.95. And then once you get to 250, you pay 7.75 on that amount between 250 and 500. And then of course, 500 to $1 million. Once you get to $1 million, we're going to give you the opportunity to be a good person, contribute to the state without anything except start at $1 with 7.99. So let's take a look at how this works. Let's say that I make $250,000. My first 10,000, I'm paying the 4.75 on, right? The next 90, I'm paying 4.9 on. The next 150, I'm paying 4.95. Let's say that Ann makes 260,000. So Ann's going to be just like me. The first 10, 4.7. The next amount, 4.9, 100 to 250, 4.95. And the amount between 250 and 260 is what she'll pay the 7.75 on. So see, it's progressive. Okay, other things it does, of course, it expands property tax credit from 5 to 6%, and it implements a child tax credit of up to $100 per child. Now, $100 per child of credit is a lot of money. Let's say that your taxes are going to be $1,200 and you have 2 kids. Well, instead of having to pay $1,200, you'd pay $1,000. So for lower income families, that really makes a difference. What's it mean? Fair funding and investments for our communities. Again, generates about $3 billion. The first year it'll be about 1.5 because it starts in January. It's money we can invest in education, jobs, human services, healthcare. And it also helps with some fairness for people of color because they've been paying more than their share of income in taxes. Helps our essential workers, right? And when it comes to small businesses, here's a quote from one of our small business people. And what it does is it allows us to have job training, entrepreneurship programs, and higher education. It actually cuts taxes for businesses and farmers that make less than $250,000 a year in profit. Okay, so for example, let's say I'm running a restaurant over in Champaign, and let's say it's pre-COVID, right? And I'm close to campus, and so my gross income from my restaurant is $600,000 for the year. But at the end of the day, I've hired some students to work, and I've paid them wages. I've paid other people wages. I have equipment. I have the cost of food. I have real estate taxes on the building. I have a mortgage on the building. All these different things add up. And I take those off of that top amount. And then I'm lucky to be at $200,000. And that's what I'm going to pay taxes on. I'm not paying taxes on the entire gross amount. Okay, it protects older Americans. It helps us get some needed funds for core services. Home care, senior services, Medicaid. It does not allow the state to tax retirement income. It does not make it easier for the state to do that. They could do that right now if they wanted to, but let's face facts. The legislators don't want to lose their jobs. So they're very much interested in doing everything they can to avoid taxing income on retirees. But if we don't fix the budget crisis, they may take a look at it. Okay, what's on the ballot? It gives the state the authority to impose a higher income tax on higher income levels, which is how the federal government does. It removes a portion of the revenue article that sometimes refer to a flat tax. It requires all taxes on income to be the same. It does not change tax rates. It gives the state the ability to impose higher rates on those with higher income levels and lower rates on those with middle and income levels. So you're going to get to vote yes or no. This slide here, and we can go into some questions and answers pretty soon, really means a lot to me as I look at this. And I know Christy Barnwell, she's a professor at UIS here in Springfield. And she says, you know, the fair tax matters to me as a first generation college student. I'm living under debt from generations before not funding higher education. And now I'm serving college students who are struggling under even more debt with even fewer resources. So if we look at Christy, and we think about it a little bit, she's a first generation college student. And you know, that's where a family is you know, lifting somebody up. They're first generation college students. And we want those kids to be going to college. But what's happening now is they've got so much debt, it makes it hard for them to even think about going to college. We, in the last 10 years in Illinois, have cut funding for higher education by 50%. So if you wonder why these students have so much debt, it's because the state has not had the money and we have not invested in higher education. If we had more money and we could start investing in higher education, it would mean that we would not have as high a tuition. It would mean more students would have an opportunity to go to college right there in Champaign. Okay, so how do we do it? How do we pass it? Well, we all vote yes, right? So we need 60% of those voting on the issue or 50% of those voting. So we want you to pledge that you're going to vote for it. But here's the thing that we got to do now. Make a plan, vote early, vote yes for fair tax. And then what we have to do is really start having conversations with our neighbors. We all know that we're ready to vote yes for fair tax. But now what we've got to do is get out there and do the things that are necessary. I would suggest that if you have Facebook, that you please share our post from Vote Yes for Fair Tax on Facebook. There's a new post almost every day. And the reason I ask you to do that is people know you. You are an expert. You are their neighbor. You're the one they respect and listen to. Right now, our theme is going to be from now until the end of the election is vote now and vote yes. And again, I just want to urge everybody, talk about values. We can't get into the weeds and talk too awful much about pennies and nickels and dimes and quarters because people don't care. Most of the people you're going to be talking to are people like my wife and people like my neighbor who are not as educated, who don't care that much about this stuff, who don't need to know all the details. But when you talk about values and how it impacts them, and you ask them some questions, and then get into a conversation, then we can win. You know, some of the questions you might ask, for example, are, you know, do you have a student in college? Or do you have a grandchild in college? Do you realize that we haven't been putting our money into higher ed, and that's why their tuition is so high? Would you be interested in helping with that? For seniors like myself, you know, if we can take the pressure off of the real estate taxes, that means a lot to most of us seniors. So when you're talking to seniors, that's one thing you can say. And also, when you're talking to people about social services, explain to them all the cuts we've had and use those 2 videos that you just saw from local people who tell stories that, you know, about what's going on. So why don't we do this? Why don't we open it up for questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
Which is, it's more about the this is not about your presentation. So if
Sure.
you
Yeah.
don't want to answer this, but this new, what can you say? The anti-group has brought something to the court saying that there's something wrong with the language of the amendment.
Yeah, that's it. That's the Illinois Policy Institute. And I don't know if any of you follow Illinois Policy Institute on Facebook, but I would suggest you don't. One of the things that happens when you start following them on Facebook is they get access to all your friends and starts spreading all their lies and stuff to everybody else. Yeah, they're trying to, it's another way to try to stop this, and understand who funds the Illinois Policy Institute. It's people like Ken Griffin, who just, Ken Griffin the richest guy in Illinois, just put in $46.75 million to stop fair tax, which is an investment for him, when you think about it, because he can throw $46 million in there right now. And over the long term, he's going to save far in excess of $46 million. So the people that are doing this, the opposition, are pretty much rich people. They're trying to protect themselves. I always say, follow the money. And when you follow the money, you'll see that the funders of the Illinois Policy Institute and the people that are opposing this are people not like us and not like our neighbors. So
is this just like sort of a publicity stunt in a way to get a lot of?
It is. It's a publicity stunt in a way, and it's a whole Hail Mary pass that I'm sure that the courts, when they finally look at it, will throw it out. One reason they're doing this is it shows that they are concerned that we will pass the fair tax amendment. And I'll tell you, with all the negative stuff out there, for somebody like me that's been working for months and months and months, many hours a week on this, you get to the point where you say, wow, I wonder how strong they are, how strong is the opposition. I had the opportunity yesterday to be on a comms call, and we had someone from Vote Yes for Fairness on the governor's group, and their polling is showing that we're still ahead, but that we've got to keep up the fight. So don't get discouraged when you see all this out there. And they're going to throw, most of those ads have just a sliver of truth in them, and then a whole bunch of other stuff wrapped around it. And what they're trying to do is scare people. And the people that they're scaring the most are seniors. Because, I talked to someone who works with the ASME retirees in Illinois, and she said yesterday she's getting a lot of calls from retirees that are concerned about retirement income being taxed. And it's not going to be taxed. What are some other things people have heard that concerns them? Yeah, Elizabeth, unmute yourself.
Yeah, you hear that this will allow the government to increase the taxes on anything they want to, and I was just wondering about this.
Well, sure, they can do that today, right? And that's they can change the tax rates anytime they want. The legislature can, and they have several times. They've increased them and they've decreased them over the years. But the fact is that in states that have a progressive income tax, more often than not, taxes are reduced instead of increased. But yeah, they can come back and quite honestly, Elizabeth, let's be honest with each other here. The states, we're in terrible shape because of COVID. We are in terrible shape. And the orange guy out there in DC just said the other day he's not going to continue to negotiate any kind of relief. So we're in bad shape. So the fact is they're going to have to reduce services quite a bit, or they're going to increase the income tax on every one of us, on everybody. Or we have a choice by voting yes for fair tax to let those who can most afford it pay their fair share.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you, I also want to comment. It's not when they have changed income taxes and increased them. is not an easy lift at the legislature. It's not easy. They really, 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 it's one of the last things a legislator ever wants to vote for. Okay. Tricia, did you have something?
I just said that I've heard that Aarp is supporting this yes for fair tax because they believe that if it doesn't pass, there will be tax increases that will impact the seniors more heavily.
That's correct. AARP is 100% behind fair tax. And they did a press conference earlier today with Jane Addams' group up in Chicago and I believe the Illinois Alliance for Retired Americans. The three of them did a press conference about it today in Chicago. And yeah, the AARP is 100% behind fair tax. And and another thing I tell people, I say, the League of Women Voters has been working on this for 50 years. Do you think that group of people, the League, would be pushing something that wasn't good for everybody? Come on. Because the League has a good reputation, right?
We like to think so.
But again, I just want to ask you, please talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, have that conversation. Understand, no, this does not tax retirement income. Because so many seniors are hearing that. Understand that with the situation we're in right now, we're going to need some more money, and we have to decide who's going to give us that more money. Is it those who can most afford it, or those who can least afford it among us?
So one more comment. I know we've all heard this, and maybe some of us had heard the answer, but another common complaint is, I'm not giving those crooks any more money to waste in this state. That's, and these are, intelligent people. I'm not saying this is even a party thing. It's like,
Well, you're right.
They're going to spend this on this.
So here's what we say. The RBC has been working on this stuff for a long time. Our main three things have been adequate revenue to support state priorities and make smart investments. No more cuts to vital programs and services, and fairness in releasing revenue. Fair tax does that. But at the end of the day, when the vote is all counted, it's not over. That's when we have to unite together to make sure to participate in our democracy and make sure that they spend this money in the way that we want it spent. This is not done on November 3rd, folks. This is a continuing battle that we're going to have to participate in and take part in to make sure that they invest this money the way that we want it invested. And how do we do that? We have conversations with our state senators and our state representatives, and we let them hear from us. If we're unhappy about the way the state's been operated in the past, we quite honestly have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, did we do our part to let our legislators know what we wanted done? Or did we abdicate that responsibility? And that's one thing that I know the League is always known for, and that's being involved and making sure that you're involved and making sure good things happen with the money we have.
Well, if there aren't any more questions, I guess, unless you have some concluding remarks, Jim?
Well, my concluding remarks are, I'll tell you why I'm doing this, okay? I'm 73 years old. I'm looking to the future. I'm looking to the future in February where I'm going to become a great-grandparent. And I want a future for my great-grandson where there's adequate education and there's adequate services for his needs as he goes forward. And that's why I'm doing this. So I don't know what your 30-second elevator speech is about why you're doing it, but come up with one and be able to talk to your friends and have that conversation. And I would very much like, Teresa, I'll touch base with you later. I'd love to see a copy of your videos you had.
Am I muted, unmuted? Let me see. It's going to be, I'll send you the link. It's going to be posted on our YouTube
Oh, good.
channel. And so, yep, you'll be able to see the two folks and yourself in a couple of days when Jim gets it, James gets it posted.
Yeah. I'm interested in seeing the other two people more than myself.
Okay. All
So
right.
hey, and if you know, there's some vote yes for fair tax signs around. If you guys have more, be sure that you get them out. And if you need more, I know there are more in Champaign.
Right. I have some. Anybody wants some or knows friends who want some, I can get them to you for sure. All right. Thank you, Jim, so very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye. Bye. Go out and enjoy the sunshine. Yay.
Thank you.